This might take a couple of sessions, but before the end of the day, I'd like to have you updated as to what I think is going on. When Walter Cronkite died, I went to church. The person who challenged me as to why I was in his church didn't seem particularly impressed by my reason. But I thought of what Vince Lombardi said when he heard that JFK died. He said, I went to church. Now I know you're thinking, Mac, you're no Vince Lombardi. But in a way, a very special way, my father was. Let me tell you what that means. He was part of a generation of overachievers from the Roosevelt era who knew how to get along even when they were rivals. Now that has changed. The character of what we expect from the Fourth Estate, for example, no longer reflects the genuine and sincere concern for America that Cronkite had, nor the magnanimity of the Lombardi generation, the Kennedy people. I won't belabor the point. What I'm saying is it was my goal to keep you as informed as possible. If this takes more than one session going into the afternoon, so be it. There's a lot of issues that come to mind when we look at what's going on as a result of, as well as inside of, Ukraine. One of the most obvious facets of this disaster of war, as Goebbels would call it, was binaryization. You're on this side or you're on the other side. I mean, we see uh, Putin bars wolves' teeth at traitors and so on. This binaryization in his own ranks that he needs to look at. Reagan used to do this in America. I strongly objected to it. But the fact that you get a leader like Trumpy Tune who's singing praises for Putin even as he does this is still highly irregular. Now, one of the things that caused me to want to invest this day in talk videos that don't get watched except surreptitiously, but they're public videos, is that there was a report that an American volunteer for the Ukrainian army was sent to the front without weapons and told he would be shot for deserting. I've heard some questionable stories of people who were suspected of being spies killed. I know they're hysterical and frightened, and it's hard to project into a situation you don't know. I have little doubt that there are assassins, scouting the garages and so forth. But another thing that happened was that an Iowa man went into a bread line and was cut down. What I know about the Trumpy Tomb Puritans is that they watch my poetry very closely. Now, the reason why they watch my poetry very closely is because lyricists can be very jealous of poets because lyricists need the might of music behind their bullshit. And I captured the envy and the hatred of Penis Simfield. A friend of his is friends of Schwarzenegger, and Schwarzenegger has absolute envy of me. And part of the deranged victimization I've suffered is the consequence of Schwarzenegger being so driven with envy of me. What makes him envious of me is that I was from a pilgrim name in America. He can't run for president. Now, I watched his video yesterday. I come from a long lineage of servicemen in America. good performers. 1812, the Revolution. I mean, John Curry ended up in the brig for some serious reason, but you know, eh, French and Indian. My uncle was mustard gas in the trenches. My father was in Leyte Gulf. I've put up with a lot. I can't serve. I'm deaf, and plus I was in the Vietnam War, and I didn't want. I mean, well, we can go into that some other time, but I wasn't in it. I was of the generation behind it. I grew up watching it. That's what I'm trying to say. But the result of all of that is what an old neighbor, Conan McManus, used to call "kill the man with the ball." And I watched Schwarzenegger's video yesterday. It was spot on. It was great. It was like a post-war world for the world, where he can serve as in U-24 as a important leader because he showed that he understands American psychology. He understands the values, the desires. He's been married to someone from the Kennedy family. He's honed his tone over the years, and he's a remarkable person. He had no business doing to me what he did, but he's done it. I mean, how can a man like Arnold Schwarzenegger envy a deaf poet so badly that he chemically castrates him and demands that he never have children, which is what he and his little circle of honed tone, feeble minded people like Painter Sinfield did? So it gets a little mysterious when you look at the fact that they've been playing off of my poems. They've been using them. Louis used to call it twisting his ankle. They get an inspiration and they'd say, look at the unintended consequence of that. They'd go and hit Iowa Mali and stuff. And they pick little poetry game with the media, front line, kill you if you desert, man from Iowa gunned down in the breadline. And that reflects one of my poems ends, its epiphany, its fulfillment is I will be a photon when I die. It was defiance of the nuclear threat, but aha. Gweener, I mean Yoko Kagurana, you know who I mean, the one who's leading all of this stuff, the foreign hater from Tojo Ronin, wants fulfillment of all of this, right? Because she blames my father for being off the coast of Japan. He was on the radio. You could hear his voice, and there's his voice again, and so they play this hippie prank through hair on, the pornographic movement of sexual liberation, leading to the epiphany of atomic revenge for Japan, which is something Schwarzenegger is mired in. He can't really escape the way he's pulled all this stuff. We're hoping that it doesn't come to that, of course, but they're lining up. I mean, I'm trying to call off the pending game of nuclear bomb. But of course, that would be predicted too. So you want to give your life instead, you know? And so this is a sort of word game operation that they mongered. And when I say they, I mean Reagan, Bush, Alan Dulles, Clint Eastwood, the fools in Hollywood who killed JFK and think they're better and are going to prove it and so forth. So Putin is a rearguard rescue of that syndicate, in my humble opinion. He's the most draconian sniveler of all, you know. So what starts to get complicated when you get down into the nitty gritty of how Seattle women operate, because they don't care about privileged American status at all. They want what Arnold and them guys at U-24 want, and which I have always said we should be doing more of, the sociology of ending hunger. Now, when I say I'm not a sociologist, that doesn't mean I don't believe in ending hunger. I believe in the sociology of ending hunger. But what I don't believe is that the best way to resolve the contradiction between the masses is to appeal to their archetypal sensibilities, the way the Green Party and the brilliance of UW Dialectical, who helped Putin and Trumpy-tune, the Trumpy-tune Putin these who poison me. I'm getting wheezing. It was inevitable they were going to do that to me. because I would call Jesus Weezo. You think, oh, he's scoffing the Lordy Dordy's name. They told me don't say Jesus Salou when I saw Jesus Salou play. I was just a little boy and it scared me. Never say the holy name, right? You say Jesus. Well, I'm not going to call Jesus Jesus. So I have to say something. I've read Mark Twain. I understand it's not humor. So I always say, wait, so it's inevitable that we're going to do something. Because the Trumpy impunities don't like that I told on them about poisoning my mouth in the lead up to the COVID bomb. These are the people who are ramrod straight character, right? Content of the character is what matters, not the color of skin. I mean, that's gibberish. They only care about the color of skin. The Green Party is the Black Party. They claim to be inclusive, but they're the Black Party. The Post Office Union is advocating for black. Period. Period. Content of the character rolled out. So, what did they do to illustrate this fact? Is in Jet Magazine, they have the traitor King with his head split open, with the guy watching through a camera, and it's double image of two women who look like Coretta. See, they're calling him a traitor to his wife. And that's the way they've played this game. So when I say that there's the most draconian sniveler of all, the whole chicken scene is coming to roost. But these trophies of character who pulled this, a murder syndicate of our leaders because of fly by night issues of romance, la di da. The fact that the Beatles are behind it tells you enormous amount about the hypocrisy of these gentlemen. Abandoned our grannies en masse. They didn't care about their ex-girlfriends. They pushed to the front of the lines, to get the toilet paper when COVID went on. So I don't take, pardon me, but I take the content of the character of the Russian army men who have been captured in POW and apologized and explain what happened a lot more seriously than the VA in Seattle and their women. Okay. So does Schwarzenegger. He's a smart, bright man who appealed to them. I have nothing against his post-war vision, because we can't have a nuclear ball game. I mean, it's just, Putin wants to go down in history as the man who ruined it for everybody. There's nothing I can do about that. But so what you see in all of this is the Fern Hollow Bridge gang, fulfillment of the Fern Hollow Bridge gang. Everything collapses like the Fern Hollow Bridge, and they go, ha, 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 ha. See, we were right all along about the nature of reality. So, there's a lot of unfounded speculation about me and stuff. They built a death pact love fest with her when everybody who gets sex crazed, and then we'll bounce the boogie of the AIDS molecule, and there'll be a death pact love fest. That's the pawn of the man in the broadline getting gunned down, and the American who's sent to the front without arms and told to stay there or you will be killed. You see, it's hanky pank from the sociology department. So the complexities of the sociological scene, there's sociopaths in UW dialectical sociology, but they have it all figured, People like to see somebody get away, they blew up the children's shelter and then let go of the mayor, and you're like crying from two sides of your head. One with relief and one with mortification. This is Wiener's specialty. She thought this all out as a sort of cosmic revolution. So one of the things that we've done in America that's unforgivable to Mick Jagger is that we've divorced from they're doing this Toto come home thing, And so Toto was not born in Kansas. He was born in Manchester. So I'm good luck pulling that off, Mickey Pooh. So one of the things that rises as a question was Gail Burson, who's the architect of the script, with Putin's gang all along. There's always been indications that behind Khrushchev's back, some devious members of the KGB operated with Dulles. Andropov has always been very suspicious to me. And, there's no research that I know of Putin's relationship with Andropov. But you have this situation, of where the only people who admire Arnold Schwarzenegger are the uh, gender identity of Seattle women. And andro is like androgyny. There's a thread of androgyny that links Tammy Simon and Arnold's protege Leslie Katz to the Dalai Lama, the mysticism of the blended image of John and Yoko on too much hallucinatory substance. And so, the idea that if you're going to be eternal, you can't procreate, androgyny. It was all sort of theatered out by the Burmese, on-song gurus at the sacred swastika was shrine, and that's the sort of the West Coast stuff we've learned to expect in the psychiatric hospitals. So the question is, Gail Burson working with Putin all along doesn't discount the proof that she was working with Clinton was a big factor. Clinton was the one who attacked me psychiatrically in the neuroplasm to cover for what Midori Goto and Arnold were doing in the revenge attack for Yoko Ono, supposedly about John Lennon, while they're stealing from the museums in Pittsburgh. I mean, they pulled the whole thing out of thin air. It was a big hocus pocus thing. But she was from the Soviet Jewry era. Like when he said something about a Madge, that Putin dude, I thought of Madge Silverman was one of the Soviet Jewry people in the Holocaust survivor community where I grew up. We got immersed and immersed. So it's possible that when Casper, the friendly ghost of Hitler, attacked me for Ronnie, and Casper attacked me as a child for Zinsky and Pina Sinfield, that Putinese Trumpy tunes were, pulling the strings. This is what we're going to do instead of JFK. And Arnold take a Kennedy wife and abandons her with the death of Circe. Mysterious death of Circe by the Trumpy tune Putinese Soviet Jewry who have me right now on their cameras. I guarantee Miles Gershner is watching this fiendishly. So when you look at Putin's warped style of an oligarch gargoyle, you have to realize that these oligarch gargoyles are hobnobbing with one another. Not lost on them the significance of a lowbrow, highbrow, like Walter Cronkite mortification when he went to Vietnam. And it's often phased out by the Trumpy tune VA, but Cronkite was really down on what was going on once it sunk in. So, my going to church is typical of me. I'm drawn to people like that. That's that status that makes me the white in the minds of UW dialectical. You see, what happens with UW dialectical is that they interpret everything along the lines of race-coded fetish. It's not an issue of right and wrong. It's what race code. You should have seen them garbling their attempt. The deaf are to blame for their own isolation because of their ineptitude in forming intersectionalities with other minorities. Oh, put on your thinking cap and get that straight. Therefore, when people who tortured you and rape your girlfriend demand the cottage cheese in your grocery bag, you give it to them or else. That's what it plays out as. So and they're definitely to blame for not realizing all that stuff. So they have their thinking caps on. They're brilliant, Pat. Very good for you, Trumpy to impute these that you could come up with something so weird. So what we see is a refusal to investigate promising leads from before any of this stuff developed with COVID and the Ukraine. I went and explained I was locked in a house from the inside over by Leslie Park in Lawrenceville by the Fernhall Bridge gang who tortured me. When the Casper, who we had moved to get away from, came in and the house was locked from the inside. I couldn't get out the back door. This was Ukraine, boy. Here comes Putin. Okay, so they were part of a group called Artec. Now, I pointed out that they initiated a two virgins pussy ball game over Maduri that was clogged to the AIDS attack. And because that it happened. Simple enough. And they were from Salk Research Labs. They were the only people who had the capacity for, when um, that woman Tulsi Gabbard gets up and sets with pussy ball game. He puts on his pussy ball mitt. Romney, your dinner's ready. Romney Toady. Remember that pretty album from with about the frustrated, complete impotence dude by Giles and Fripp. Never mind if you don't. It was obscure. But he puts on his pussy ball mitt and he says, "You're spreading Russian propaganda by saying that we deliberately released the AIDS attack." And she says, "I did nothing kind. You're talking about Jimmy Carreri who says that. Jimmy Carreri says that. You need to tune in Jimmy Carreri. What I'm saying is that if there's out of control biolabs, we need to get control over them internationally." Okay. So PUTIN is FULLOFSHIT. How do I know that? Because he doesn't seem to agree with that. And so is Zelensky. Otherwise, Putin and Zelensky would say, she's right, she's right. The first thing we're going to do for international safety and harmony is to close these Trumpy and Putinese labs. They're not doing that. They're dropping bomb flares on Zaporizhzhia and threatening nuclear bomb war games. So we're talking about the precursor to the post-war world because we're getting a nuclear ultimatum to accept this. Okay, so clearly we don't want to blow up the world over all this. We just don't want to see it happen again. So I'm with, at minimum with Tulsi Gabbard on that issue. We should make clear that we need better response. We need to get these weapon potentials under control. We need to survey these biolabs. We can't have Pink Floyd telling Aaron Dixon to stay away a safe distance because somebody's going to poison Matt Query in the mouth and teach him the meaning of the word weasel. We can't have that. It's not good for our public relations that we just sit there slyly laughing about it like Hillary Clinton and her hippie trial, Nostra. Swami Nostra. So when you get into these binaryization factors and the arguments that are put forward by the noxious twin team of Mick Jagger and Greg Carl, I mean, whoever came up with that, it seems impenetrably one of these. Impenetrably one of those. Ooh, stink bomb. Greg Carl used to talk about putting shit in a bag, lighting it on fire, and watching people throwing on somebody's porch and ring the doorbell to laugh while they stomped it out, and the shit flew everywhere. That's Greg Carl's mentality. Now he's saying don't have sex as a word game in partnership with Mickey Pooh. Oh, that's deep, man. That's deep. Oh, you got to put on your thinking cap to get to the bottom of those smarty poos, those smarty pants is a dialectical UW. Boy, they're brilliant. So, and they call it a world of ash war game. Ain't that something? So they repeat these absurdities ad nauseum. And I would like to wrap this up on a point that I wanted to make yesterday's video about how Penis Gabriel conjured out of thin air this stuff about Lenin. I took a course with a sergeant in the police department who used to say with some shyness that when it came to children being involved as victims of violent crime, that she would lose it. And it was almost like she would confess to a certain form of unfitness. False. A person who is not in touch with children in fear is inherently unfit to serve in any capacity. That's what went wrong in Vietnam, and that's what's going wrong with Putin. So when you look at the inability, the structured unwillingness to deal with me as a victim, which I am, You see it from two frames of reference. One of them is Martin Nordenberg's Nature of Reality team, you know, and the other is um, the ethical dimension of law enforcement. Mark Nordenberg believes there's no such thing as an ethical dimension of law enforcement. Law enforcement is power. Okay. The other point of view is that there's an ethical dimension to law enforcement. Now, when you look at the people like Penis J who say that it's a lottery ticket and a victim rivalry, that we're all inherently the raft of the Medusa, a bunch of groupies waving the flag, notice me, to Ringo Starkey. What you have is the idea that there's no ethical dimension. They're with Nordenberg. It's a form of lottery control. Okay, and the reason why they see it as lottery control is easy to explain because in lottery control, they sit on top of Casino Mountain, and whoever wins has to accept their power. They are the successful oligarch. You see, and that is not, you have to be chummy with the most noxious, snotty, horrible people in the world to be a victim. You have to be accepting of them and to be a victim. Puritan, apparently, in his brilliance, couldn't grasp why somebody would think bombing a children's shelter was a war crime. It's like war isn't crime. Well, you know, if the point is that Americans do this to the Syrians, you've made your point. You know, would you please stop it? You know, I've been after America to moralize more. That's why my father was on the outs with the Nammies, was because he said that Vietnam wasn't moral. He was like Walter Cronkite. Where does Putin get off saying that there's nobody like us? Noam Chomsky's been saying it for years and years and years. He should throw his weight behind Chomsky. He should come off of his high horse and say, "Why aren't you listening to Chomsky? He keeps telling you, and telling you. We're human beings too." No, I'm not gonna do it that way. I'm gonna blow up a maternity ward, man, and dare you to call me a war criminal.